I want to be helpful, truly. But I think there's probably also an amount of like, oh, if I don't do this, then I'm being a bad friend, or I'm being a bad coworker, or I'm like not pulling my weight with my team, or, so I think that there are ways that that can factor in.
Hey, I have the honor of having my dear friend Malee Hughes today to talk about what it's like to move through the core fears of Enneagram 2 and to become integrated and healthy, especially in a career domain. So, thank you so much for being here, buddy. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be. Thanks for having me. It's yeah, genuinely an honor to be able to sit and chat with you about this. And it's been so wonderful seeing you grow this community. And I'm just so proud of you as my friend. And I'm glad to be here. So
Thank you so much. I'm squealing. I have likewise seen a journey with you in our years of friendship. I know that you have grown a lot in how you've described feeling like I'm not going to put it perfectly in the way that you said it, but something along the lines of maybe this would best be described by first off sharing the context of what is an Enneagram 2 and what are some of the challenges. So maybe you'll echo some of the challenges that you experienced before, but now we were recently talking about like you growing through a lot of those. And so I want to hear about that process, especially others that might be listening to this who resonate with being this personality type. This will be very beneficial. So I'm going to read off straight up Google what is an Enneagram 2, and you could let me know if you resonate with it or if you want to share any more nuance. So
okay.
this is the type that's known as the helper or the giver, and they're known for being kind, empathetic, and helpful. That's why everybody's favorite type is a 2. We love collecting friends in this type. So their traits are they're friendly, sentimental, and empathetic, and have a knack for making others feel loved. Can attest. They are also hardworking, motivated, and have a drive to connect with others. Their strengths are that they're skilled at building close connections and are great workplace mentors and coaches. They're also attentive, appreciative, generous, warm, playful, and nurturing. Weaknesses are that they could sometimes forget to take care of themselves in their desire to support and help others. They could also be manipulative, people pleasing, enmeshed, or codependent. They could have problems with possessiveness and with acknowledging their own needs. A core fear of the type 2 is that core fear of feeling rejected and unwanted. Core weakness is they struggle with the core weakness of pride, which means they deny their own needs and emotions. That's an interesting definition of pride.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it. Well, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense, but there's a lot of ways you could split that
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Like you're
Uh,
like,
uh,
I can take care of this. I can do this. I should be okay with this. Yeah, yeah. I see
Okay,
that.
yes. Yeah, that makes more sense. Of course, it would make sense to you because you're like, "Hmm,
I'm like,
let
oh
me."
yeah, I identify.
Yeah. The last thing I'll share is stressors and feelings. Stressors of this type is they could worry about creating good feelings and avoiding conflict. And feelings that they may experience are confusion, repression, and indirect expression regarding their own needs. I guess that's a way to say passive. I don't
Yeah.
know. But okay, now that I've read that whole textbook, can you share a bit about what your experience has been like
Yeah.
resonating with this personality type?
Yeah. Well, I'll say, okay, a lot of things about me are stereotypical too. One thing that is not is I feel very comfortable with confrontation and communication. So that's
I've
like my
known that
one
from the
thing. I'm not
beginning.
really passive. Like I'm like, let's talk it out. I think I have a lot of faith that relationships can handle that kind of communication. And if anything, I think a lot of times I identify more that they will come through it a lot stronger, knowing each other more genuinely and honestly. So I think that's the one thing with the 2 that I always have had a hard time identifying with. But pretty much the rest of it, I feel some pretty strong connections to.
Yes.
Um, and I will say, growing up, I think growing up in a spiritual community, it's also been hard sometimes wondering if I am a two in my nature or if I've kind of just been trained to do all the two things.
That
Um,
could be
and
real.
I will say I keep trying to take, another look at it, and every single time I'm still just like, no, I'm definitely a two. And you joke about wanting to be a two, but there are times where you're like, I really wish I wasn't. But
Yeah.
I think I'm embracing more, learning how to, yeah, I think like learning how to be a healthier two or a more balanced. In my perspective as any Enneagram, the idea of health, you're honestly like moving more towards a center or a balance of all of them, and yeah, so I think that, yeah, so some strong two things for me is I do have a hard time with boundaries because I want to help. And it's not even a sense of obligation in a negative way. Like, I genuinely am like, oh, yeah, I could do that and I could do that and I could take care of that and that and that. And then it's just like, all of a sudden you're spread incredibly thin.
Hmm.
And I had a big habit of wearing myself out super intensely. I have a
Yeah.
lot of chronic health problems, but some of those have been helped in my work and having better boundaries because I do a lot better with my personal health by having good boundaries. And I don't run myself so stinking ragged.
Yeah.
I can't function, which is what I used to do. So it's like I would have worked, super intensely trying to make sure everybody else was taken care of in my personal life and work life and, whatever. And then it would just come up that I had nothing left. And then I would crash for like, I'd be sick constantly. Like, so it'd be like a week, I'd be taken out, not able to function, or a weekend, whatever, it just,
It's hard.
yeah. And that's like not a way to live.
No. That so I'm realizing as you're sharing that this series should probably be a lot more than it just about the fears of each type. I think honestly, Audrey and I got off on that start because she's an Enneagram 1, and
Uh-huh.
the 1 really does struggle with fears around a lack of perfectionism. But then
Mm,
I'm like, not every type resonates with like, oh, fear is my strongest experience in my challenges in work. It's like could be other things like boundaries.
yeah.
There, it could be stemming from a fear,
Yeah.
but there could be a lot
Yeah.
of challenges that you feel like arise from your type.
For sure. And I think that, like, I mean, I guess I could look at fear in the concept of, like, oh, if I don't, I want to be helpful, truly. But I think there's probably also an amount of, like, oh, if I don't do this, then I'm being a bad friend, or I'm being a bad coworker, or I'm like not pulling my weight with my team, or, so I think that there are ways that that can factor in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know for me, it was important. I think it's helpful even recognizing with those fears, like what's going to be a work environment that I enjoy. And I realized for me, it was more important for me to be working in an environment where I really felt like I had a team that I felt like good and connected with. And it was like the actual physical thing I was doing didn't quite hold the same level of importance that I would have thought. I think
Wow.
growing up, a lot of times, like you're told to like do what you love. And I noticed for me, so I'm an artist and a musician, and unfortunately, we live in a world where artists and musicians often can't do what they love for money, not in a way that can actually, in this economy, support a family or support, like dreams that people may have. And I think that, my husband and I want to buy a home, and, we're millennials. There's not a lot of homes that we can
Yeah.
afford right now. And so I think like there's an aspect of that of looking at like what are the ways that I can feel fulfilled at work and still preserve time for me to do the things that I love and enjoy. So that two things were a part of that. One was recognizing I needed to have better boundaries because if I was giving all of myself to work, there was nothing left over for me as a person to
Yeah.
feel fulfillment or encouragement or just like joy in that way. And I think recognizing the things that were important for me in a job weren't necessarily art things or creativity. It was relationships. And so I think I wanted to be on a team where I felt safe with, where I felt like communication was very clear. So I knew if there was something that needed to be worked through, I knew they would communicate it to me and it wouldn't just like be like a passive aggressive grudge. Like I could check in and be like, hey, am I pulling enough weight? Do I need to do more? Do I need to do less? Like, um, and then I think, so that coming together and finding a job that I'm not particularly passionate about what I'm doing. I care about doing a good job,
Yes.
but I think really like learning how to have boundaries so I could let my passion be in another area and let work just be a healthy environment for me. And I
Yeah.
had never had a healthy work environment. I had passionate work environments that were very unhealthy.
Yeah.
um, but and at least in this stage, there may be another point in my life where that changes, and I think there's nothing wrong with any of that. There's also nothing wrong if you find your person who needs to have a passionate work experience. But I think for me, it was having a community, like my team, having a boss, or a direct supervisor who I felt like we had good communication with, and that I felt like that we could speak openly and honestly about like what I needed to do my job well, and also what they needed from me to be a good team member. And then I think really I came into this job with much stronger boundaries than my last job. And I think that helped a lot, to the point where I've been there for almost 3 years now, and I love my job. It's been
Yay.
great. And it's not something I'm passionate about, but I love it. It's just,
Yeah.
I work with good people. I enjoy what I'm doing, and then I check out at the end of the day, and it's so nice that I can
And
just
sometimes you
focus on
go on cool
what I
work
love.
trips. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I was saying like, and
No, you're
sometimes you
fine.
also go on cool work trips that I've seen you
That
love.
is true. It is fun.
Can you share a
It's
little
true.
bit about the history of the jobs that you've held? A lot of cool jobs that plenty of people would, who are just like, I need something that I'm passionate about, would say you scored. Like you worked for an amazing restaurant group, like here in Austin, like
Yeah.
doing the well, I should let you describe this, but I saw the projects you were working on. I was like, this is so cool. And I remember you also, I think, worked for Porsche, right?
I did.
Which
Yeah.
was
It was quite fun.
Blake, your husband always joked like this is hilarious because Molly is like the least caring about cars of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
mean, yeah. It's funny. Yeah. So I've worked in, I do music. So I worked in sound engineering for a while at a recording studio. And again, boundaries, just really hard, especially when you're working late nights. I was just gotten married to my husband, and I recognized a boundary and decided to shift out of that career because I was like, I never see my husband, and I want to have a healthy marriage. I want to be able to enjoy spending time with him. And if I'm working all of the hours he's home and he's working all the hours I'm gone, um, it just kind of made me be like, oh, like I'm not far enough in this career that like uh that I have clients coming to me, so I had to hustle a lot more for it. And honestly, like I got to learn a lot to put into my own music, but
yes.
it did kind of squash some of my love of creating music because you get so many rules, and I got a bit bogged down by like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to do this right. And rather than like ingenuity that happens when you don't have all the tools you need. So I think a couple things made me, but I think it was a step in recognizing, oh, I want to have a boundary here. Like I want to have a life where I enjoy spending time with the people I care about, and I'm not stuck at work all of the hours that the people I love are not. So I think I kind of took a step with that and shifted. And I moved into doing, I have like some history in communications and marketing. I used to run a music festival, and a number of other things. Very
Again.
fun. um,
Wow.
but moving into doing marketing and communications, I worked on with a really great home and kitchenware shop, being able to do their digital marketing, and then I shifted into working with some high end car companies. And again, that was something where it wasn't like I wasn't as passionate. I am passionate about, I like cool things. So I do get
Yeah.
excited. I'm not a person who's like wanting to like have flashy, showy, like luxe lifestyle. That's not really me. But it was very fun to get to drive a very fast car. Not gonna
Yes.
lie. And I did get to drive like, the Porsches and Aston Martins and some like, enjoyable fun moments. But again, it's just like I poured a lot of myself into that. I poured a lot of my creativity into something that it's kind of there is a creative job, but I think a lot of times people they conflate creative and design. And design is about communicating something to people. Marketing is about communicating things to people. And so it doesn't have the same freedom that creativity and artistry has. And so I think sometimes people jump into those kind of design jobs thinking like, oh, I'll get to use all my stuff. But then you get hit with the limitations of a corporate job and recognizing, oh, like I have to fit my creativity in a box, and not everybody is made for that, and sometimes people like it. And I will say I think I found a good balance of it, but it was really draining, and I really stopped doing music while I did that. I felt like I lost some parts of myself as I dove into that. And then when I shifted into the hospitality industry, I worked for a restaurant group that I love, all of my favorite restaurants in Austin, and I still love all of them. All of the food is still so delicious to me. I love the chefs that I got to work with, the kitchen teams, like the wait staff, like everybody was really wonderful. But it was, I mean, hospitality is a really rough industry. It's exhausting, it drains on you, and a lot of it, it's all in service. You're serving other people all the time. And your communication is no different, because then you're creating digital assets and marketing materials that are all catering to serving other people. And so again, I mean, that hits my two. I feel a level of fulfillment in that. But I didn't have good boundaries. I cared so much about the people I worked with, which is great, but to the point where it's like I was having a hard time sleeping, and I wasn't getting regular sleep, and I was really anxious, and I'm not an anxious person. I felt a lot of anxiety around if I was going to be able to perform well enough for the people that I worked with. And that coincided with the pandemic. And as places shifted into, hospitality, I think took the hardest hit of all the places, both in that, like financially, there was a super rough hit in hospitality, and then relationally, because, it's like it was kind of a situation where you were damned if you do, damned if you don't. You either open up or you don't open up for business. And if you open up for business, if you ask people to wear masks, people are mad. If you don't ask people to wear masks, you're mad. So it was just kind of a situation where no matter what they did, they were going to make everybody mad. And then I'm doing the digital marketing for that. So I'm trying to communicate with people, and I'm trying to make sure I'm communicating so that my servers don't have to communicate, so that they wouldn't have to be put in a line of fire where someone's mad at them because something was poorly expressed or communicated in our marketing, in digital advertising, in our emails, in any of our signage. And so it really was, there was a pressure there. And then I felt a really big pressure of if I didn't bring enough people in, my friends wouldn't make rent who were working for tips, and, or who that was their, that's their livelihood. And so I felt an immense amount of pressure. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not like saving lives. There was really no reason for me to be taking on all of that. But I think that was kind of what made me recognize that maybe working in something that I was passionate about could be a bit harmful for me as my, two brain functioned. And I think recognizing like, what is a job where I will inherently be able to enforce more natural boundaries? And for me, that was going to be something where I'm always going to care about doing a good job, and I'm going to care about my coworkers. But I was like, maybe I should pick something that's a little bit more relaxed, like a little bit less tied to my heart. I love food. I'm a big foodie. I think dinner is the new theater. I'm like, we got to like sit down and have a magical dinner. I'm like, I'd rather do that than go out to, a show or whatever. I'm like, I'm big on having a nice meal. So it was helpful. I shifted into tech, and I do communication. I work in customer advocacy for a tech company. We make software, and I get to chat with customers who use our products and get a feel for how it's been able to help their businesses grow. So still helping, still good to hear about how the things we do help people. And then I connect them up with different media opportunities, press opportunities. We do some like different events where they do speaking. So it taps a little bit into that. And it's exciting enough to hear different things, but I'm not pouring myself into it every moment. And I'm not constantly thinking about a new creative way to do something. Like I'm just able to go in and do work I care about and feel really fulfilled in knowing that like I'm achieving what I set out to do. And then I have the benefit of the team I work with. I have a boss who's very good at protecting my boundaries with me. And I really love that. I've gotten better at saying no. I think the pandemic honestly really helped me learn at having boundaries, because I had a roommate who worked with immunocompromised individuals in the medical field, and so we had a lot of extra precautions that we took. So I had to get used to saying no to seeing people that I wish I could see, that I wanted to see, and that I think honestly did really help me learn how to say no. I think recognizing that when I give in every single direction, everyone loses. The people I care most about don't get much of me. The jobs I care most about, nobody wins, because I'm drained, I'm exhausted, and everybody gets a smaller piece of me. And I think recognizing there are things that I want to do well. Like I want to show up for the people I care about. I want to show up on the projects I care about. And if I want to do a job well, I need to do my job, not everybody else's job. And so I think working with recognizing, like sometimes my grand boss, that's what I call my boss's boss.
Grand boss. That's great.
We'll ask if the team, someone on the team can volunteer to do something. And my boss is very good at being, Molly, don't volunteer. She's like, you have enough on your plate. We're understaffed. Our team is understaffed. She's like, if you agree to do this, you're going to hurt our team. And I think that helped me be like, oh, if I take on things, and not that she cares about me, but she knows that that's the way to my heart is what's going to hurt the team. And so I think like recognizing like, oh, if I start taking on other things that are outside of what I've signed up for, I'm going to let down in the areas that I don't want to be letting people down in. I don't want to cause disappointment. I don't want to fear, I don't want to have a fear of rejection because I let someone down. And so I think it kind of, for me, boundaries and that fear were very closely tied. And I think learning how to value myself and value the things that I really cared to do well about, and then learning how to put boundaries in place to protect that was very important.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways that was very tied for me in my own worth and my own spiritual worth. And I think recognizing that, like, it's so silly because it's so basic and it's a thing I knew, it's like, but like that if Christ died for me, he also died for me. Like he didn't just die for all
Whoa.
people. And I spend so much time wanting to make sure they're all taken care of, but I'm like, I do Christ's sacrifice a dishonor by like throwing aside myself to take care of other people. And if I'm treating myself like trash, then that's saying like that what Christ saw as a reason to sacrifice and die for, like that I don't view it as valuable. And I think that really got my attention. I was like, I need to value myself enough because Christ did. And because I'm spitting on a sacrifice by saying, this isn't the important part. Everybody else is. And so, yeah, I think that was a big point for me of recognizing like, I need to pay attention to what's healthy for me, what allows me to really honor the sacrifice that God made, and really let me give my best to the people I care about and to the roles that I accept and the responsibility that I accept in work or in creative endeavors or in anything that I'm pursuing. So yeah.
That is incredibly beautiful, and profound, especially. Wow, that was a very heavy hitting realization that you shared, that I'm really grateful for with Christ's sacrifice for you. It was for me. I like that. So, what has all this done with your personal and creative pursuits? Because that you certainly have some news there too. Like since you decided that you didn't have to have your job be your primary expression of passion, what's happened?
No, it's been great. I have a bit of flexibility with this job that I have, and I love that. I work really hard when I'm working, and then there's the ability to play hard when I'm off, and that's really fun. I had the ability to go on tour last year, which was really great. I missed touring, and that was like so reaffirming for my spirit. I think I had gotten really disconnected with that part of me. And I've been making some music, but specifically I got tapped to help make music for a television show, which I was very excited about. And in the
Incredible.
process, oh, go ahead.
Incredible.
In the process of doing that, I really wanted, so I've kind of been like creating motifs for different characters and things like that. And my first thought one was to pull my brother in because he's a genius with music. And so I talked to the creator and I was like, we got to pull my brother in. I was like, I love doing this, but he's going to blow us all out of the water. He can pick a sound out of what you need. It's like pull it from your brain, put it into the earth. It's wonderful. Um, but I knew but I'm still part of that process. I'm still helping with the music. And then but he's taken kind of the head start on it because he's just amazing.
Oh,
But I asked a lot of questions because that is in my nature. I'm a big question asker. And I asked a lot of questions about the character, trying to figure out what their sounds were. And they ended up wanting to tap me in and pull me in to be a part of the writing group. So that's very exciting. Yeah, and I think that's been really feeding my spirit in a whole new way. Like I've never done that side of creativity before, and it's been really cool. World building, and I think I've been navigating some aspect of some aspects I think of some spiritual trauma, because there's some themes that are very consistent in the series we're working through, and that's been really healthy for me.
good.
um, and I think really healing in my relationship with God as well. So that's been very cool. Um, and then, yeah, I've gone to travel a lot more, and I love traveling. So that's been very fun as well. Whereas, like, I think before, even if I had the time off, it's like you're emotionally so tied to what's going on at work that I couldn't enjoy being out and doing stuff. And so
Mhm.
I think now I feel a lot more comfortable. I'm currently actually working remotely from Florida, but I took this week off. I'm helping with my mom and her health. And so it's just nice to have a job that I don't feel I'm letting anybody down to take care of the people and things I need to take care of. And I do have a great team. They're all very understanding, but that's what I looked for. That's why I asked about. And in my interviews, I interviewed them back. I was like, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions because I'm interviewing you because I care about where I work because it's my life and my health and
Mhm.
again, like I want to honor what God died for. And
Mhm.
that's my life as well. And I want to be sure that I'm taking care of myself so that I can love and live the way that I'm designed to. So
Incredible. I want to ask you if you remember any of the interview questions that you pressed into in that interview process, because that could be extremely tactically helpful for other twos that are like, but how can I really make sure that it's a good team? Like, how could I get a boss like yours?
yeah, I think so for me, let's see. I probably have them saved in my notes.
Oh,
But I know
incredible. That's awesome.
I know some of them for sure were around. I like knowing people's work styles. And I specifically would ask a lot about how they navigate through correcting. If someone has a growth point, like how do you talk through your team and helping them navigate and work through that? If there's an area where they need correction or redirection, how do you go about offering that? How do you like what's your style of building that up? I liked asking questions about like what they see um, as far as their interaction with, I'm like, do you like to be granted? You can ask questions and people may not represent themselves. That's the thing you kind of
Yeah.
just have to deal with. Sometimes people think they're not micromanagers and they are. But
Bummer.
being able to ask things like that, and I think that yeah, and I was able to express things that were important to me. And I was like, like it is really important for me. I have some health problems and I like to make sure that I'm like getting the personal boundaries I need. And I know some people feel it's risky to tell someone if you have health problems when you're working somewhere, but it's the truth. And I'm like, if I don't, then I'm going to be pushing myself and hurting myself and sick and miserable and thinking I'm letting the team down all the time. So do I really want to work for a group of people who aren't going to be understanding of that? Like, that's just going to make us all miserable. They're going to feel like I'm not hitting the marks I need to hit. And, I'm going to feel constant stress and pressure of letting people down. So I'd rather work with a team who knows that. And if they're comfortable, recognizing that and being like, hey, like, yeah, like we'll find ways to communicate, like we'll find ways to navigate through this. And, like my team cared a lot more, my bosses cared a lot more about, getting things done, not the hours I put in. So it's like if I finish my project and I can rest, then that's great. Sometimes people feel very specifically like you need to be working these hours, clock in on those times. And that's not at all a bad thing. I just knew with my health stuff, I'm like, I can bang things out some days very quickly, and other days I'm having a migraine and it's going to take me twice as long to do it. And I just need to have a little bit of that space in my life to have a very productive day and have a day where I'm having a really hard time working. And know that like at the end of the week, I finish out what I need to finish out, but I don't have to worry about like, oh, did I get everything each day? These were my set tasks.
Mhm.
Um, so I think asking some of that, but I communication style, conflict, conflict, what is it? Resolving style. I don't know.
Yeah,
Conflict
conflict
resolution.
resolution.
That's the word. And like growth points. Yeah. So those are some of the questions I would ask. Yeah. I'm like trying to think of if there's any other main interview questions I asked. Yeah, but
I'm wondering
that's,
if your job search strategy is just that a lot of twos that are more relationally driven and are very particular about or prioritizing about what kind of team they work with, if they really just have to apply to a bunch of jobs. And once they get into the interview process and they're able to assess people more relationally, that's really when it begins. I know that's like some for all the people I've worked with in career coaching, sometimes people really don't like that answer. So I'm wondering if there's a different one to be able to better assess companies before you apply. Or I don't know. I don't
yeah.
usually think that's realistic, but maybe you have some tips.
Yeah. Sorry. And what's the question that you feel like is some people don't like specifically, so I don't repeat it?
Some people don't like that my thought that you could mostly just, unless you have a personal referral and a friend that works there, um, you really can only relationally assess a company and the
Mm,
people that you'll work with in the interview process. So you do have to apply and get
yeah.
accepted and then do the serious work then. But I think some people really want to feel like if I do enough Googling, I'll be able to assess companies before.
Yeah. So what I would recommend is I don't know if you guys have talked about like, informational or informal interviews.
Love
But
those.
that's the thing that I like, which is reaching out, like finding people on LinkedIn that are in, either at the company or in a similar space or something like that. And just kind of reaching out and being like, oh, yeah, I'd love to better understand a little bit about your, experience. Like I really respect a lot that's in your career path. Would love to chat a little bit more. Um, and sometimes people don't respond and that's fine, but occasionally you get people who do. And a lot of times I think people really love to offer mentorship. I mean, people feel very flattered that like someone looked them up and thought like, wow, like what you have going on, like I want to know how you got there. Like and I think in that time like you build relationship up. And whether or not you work at that company, you still are kind of building up a connection, but you don't have to think about it like networking makes me feel so gross. I hate the idea of networking.
Yeah.
But I'm like building relationships. I love that. So I think for me, like that's a point where if you don't already have a friend at the company and you're trying to assess, that's a great way to like kind of slide in and get a feel and an understanding. And you can ask how does leadership, how do they lead? How do they navigate that? If you want to have a better understanding of, like where, what realistically is like a part of like the teamwork on this team, like how do you guys work together, how does it, and maybe they're not on the team but they see that team, and I'm like, you could ask about, from outside the team, like how do you observe, the supervisor's leadership skills or things like that. um, and I think like, and sometimes people feel comfortable, and I always put a caveat out there. I'm like, if you feel comfortable answering this, I would love to know. If there's anything you don't feel comfortable with, I wholly respect that. Sometimes people aren't going to want to like maybe talk a little bit more bluntly with someone that they're just meeting, and especially not knowing how you're going to respond. But if you're hitting it off with them and like building, I think, a bit of a relationship, then it comes more from a relationship place and not from a like, I'm trying to get ahead, like skeevy, like,
Yes, exactly. You
So,
and I have the exact same thoughts on this. I love that you brought up informational interviews. That's
yeah.
perfect.
Well, and that's
My
how I mean, that's how I got my job. I was a cold hire for when I worked with the luxury car company. But when I worked at the hospitality group that I was with, New Waterloo, I connected with someone who was there, and I was like, "Hey, can I like just grab a meal? I'll buy you a drink, and we'll sit and talk." And I left it a very short amount of time in case she wanted to get out. I was like, just like
yeah.
15 minutes. Like would love to like meet for a drink after you get off work or whatever. And we did, and it was great. And she was able to just offer me some really great perspective. And I think, I think that that was super helpful. I think that the job that I'm in now, I did have some friends that worked there. So that was a little bit helpful to know a little bit of the environment. I knew some of the red flags and I knew what I could handle of the red flags. And then I felt like my team, I did just click very easily with my boss, which did help. And she was, we're both horse girls.
Horse
We're
girls.
both dog girls. We both train our dogs pretty, like, diligently, and we're very into going into all the research. And so we just, horse girls, we got that like connection. Felt very comfortable chatting it up in a much more casual, informal way. But I would say even if you're in the interview process, I think it would be totally fair to ask your interviewer, like, hey, are there a couple people that I could talk to on the team just to get a bit more of a feel for what it's like and make sure that it's a good fit? Because obviously, like, they don't want to hire you and then 2 weeks in you'd be like, oh, this isn't for me. Like,
Yeah.
it's important to them. And I think in some ways it can show really good initiative to be like, hey, are there a few people that I can chat with who are on the team or just within the company who might be open to just sharing a little bit more about what the culture is like, or what the team is like, or what the daily activities are like. Just asking for another perspective is a great opportunity. And you can put out there, like, is there anyone I can chat with informally, like just have a call or something.
Yeah.
But I think too, like that shows your interviewer that you're serious and that you're intentional and that you care a lot about making sure it is the right fit. So I'm a big fan of that. I did find my other questions if you want them.
Let's
So
go.
I had, how does your company develop your people? I like to know, like, because nothing sucks more than you find a place and you're enjoying being there and you realize there's no growth pattern for you, unless you don't want a growth pattern, which is totally fine. Some people are like not trying to climb a corporate ladder, and it's quite nice to like know what you're getting into. But if you do want to have an area of like trajectory of growth, it's good to know how people are investing in their people. So that's a question I like. I like to ask what a company's core values are, in part because I can call back to it if there are things either in talking about a raise at a different point in time and we're looking at my work and what lines up and if I'm really like living up to those. I think also just in knowing, like putting their values to the test in like in real life later on and calling back to that and being like, hey, you said that like this is a company that values this, and like these are the things that like I want out of this position, and like there's room for that. Also maybe even in the ability to like negotiate pay or things like that, knowing what you're bringing to the table and the way that it aligns with their core values. It also is great for as you interview higher up, because you already have a little bit of an understanding of what matters most to those people. And then also asking them that, because it might turn out that their values are a bit different, higher up versus some of the people you're talking with initially. So I like to know what someone's leadership style is. And I like to know what the company's long-term and short-term objectives are. And again, that's great to make note of for as you're negotiating like raises, as you're negotiating maybe like a position change or things like that. If you're keeping an eye out for what areas you might be able to move into a growth point in your company. And I think really like taking the time to make note of all of those, and obviously doing the like thank you emails afterwards and things like that I'm
Not
sure.
obviously. Do you know how many
Oh,
people don't do that now?
that's wild.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I take note of like one or two things personal that each person said, and then I have like a couple of templates that I typically will plug it into. But making sure you acknowledge a personal thing and thank them personally, and I write one for every single interview I do. Yeah, every single one. And it's like, you know, and it does, I'm not going to say it doesn't suck. I had a period of time where I was job searching for a year, and it was well, 9 months, but it was a long time. I was dog walking on the side while I was doing that, and it was exhausting.
Yeah.
And that was, that was before I got my job at the luxury car, with the luxury car brands. But I was just like, it was really rough. It's so hard getting rejected. And you're like, I wrote so many thank you emails after so many things. But I think a lot of times I just trust that it wasn't the right spot for me. Because I was honest in my interviews and I asked questions that mattered to me. And I don't know. That's all I can say.
No regrets.
It's still important. And I will say my emails specifically have been mentioned each time I've been hired. They've been like, you gave me a thank you email. One person did say, they said I had like a little doodle on my website that would like shift between my like my logo, my personal logo, and like a couple of other things and crystals. And the woman who hired me was a big crystal fan. And she was like, you had crystals on your website? And I was like, I'll take it, you know?
Whatever works.
But yeah, so I sent her a thank you email, and it had the little logo with the little crystals on it. And she was like, that was it for me. And then my business card just said, we probably talked about ice cream. That's all it says. It says my name. And then it says like the 3 things that I would do. So I was like marketing, photography, and writing, and then editing. And then on the other side, it said, we probably talked about ice cream. And she loved that. And I was like, great. I'm so glad.
Malee, you're a legend. You could be a career coach, honestly. Honestly. Yeah, so, if you're ever in a tough spot again, don't walk dogs. Don't walk dogs. Help people with their careers.
I had a really amazing career coach that I lucked into, who wasn't even actually my coach, but they were a career coach at my husband's work. And they were nice enough to take the time and walk me through all this stuff. My friend, we just became friends. And when I was going through that, she helped me. She helped me when I was negotiating. When I went to another job later on, I was able to message her and be like, how do I navigate this? I'm trying to get a raise. And she was so sweet and so caring.
Should we shout her out?
Resources. What?
Should we shout her out?
Sure. She doesn't do career coaching.
Oh, okay.
She was doing it at the time. She's not anymore. I'm like,
okay.
We're keeping this at your airtime. But she was wonderful. I really deeply love and respect her. She's off doing some other job stuff now.
Bless her.
In a different set of career. But she was wonderful. But she worked at it was a tech education company. So as people went through this software boot camp learning how to code, then they would go job search and she would help them find jobs. But she was nice enough to help me, and I very much appreciated it.
That's so sweet. My closing thoughts are, for the twos out there, it does get better. Like, if you're in in all of our young states, we're probably experimenting with more of the unhealthy challenges of our types. And then look at you now, like, of these years of thoughtful changes in your journey, I think you're flourishing as much as a human on a, up and down, hit or miss kind of world can be.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And I will say, I think, like, be gentle with yourself. That's one of my biggest things. It takes time to figure out those things. It takes time to figure out boundaries. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to give one more. Not just be gentle with yourself. I think twos have a really big fear of being selfish. I'm terrified of being selfish, because when you're constantly giving to people, feeling like stepping back even a tiny bit feels like you're letting people down and you're being selfish. And I think one thing that's great is communicating with people around you that you're working on something, and communicating that you're going to feel that way. So like my husband, for instance, I communicated with him and I was like, I'm terrified that if I start doing these things, that I'm going to be selfish. And like, even if I'm not selfish at first, I'm afraid I'm going to become selfish. Like, I'm afraid that I'm not going to be there for you when you need me to, because I'm trying to take care of myself. And I was like, but I do need to work on, like, just taking some of my basic needs taken care of. And that's going to mean that you're going to need to step up and take care of more of your needs, because like, I can't, whether that's you taking steps, to do like pull emotional weight, or, whatever it is. Cause I was kind of his main person that he would process things with. And so he started seeing a therapist. I see a therapist. We love therapy. We're big fans of therapy here. And that was like a big thing for him to take that, and he stepped up and took responsibility for his growth in processing through his emotions. And I had room for me to be able to take care more of my stuff. And even in that, his response to me when I told him that, he was like, I need to step up if you need to take care of yourself. And I love that, meant so much to me. And so I think have open communications with your friends to be like, I want to be there and I want you to communicate if you are feeling distant from me, but I do want you to know that I'm working on this. I'm working on having boundaries. I'm working on building this part of who I am. And so and I'm going to be really afraid of being selfish. Mm-hmm. So that word is going to be a big trigger to me. If you come and talk to me about a thing, I would rather you be like, I miss you. Let's make time, or something like that. And be really mindful of how you use that word. If I am being selfish, I need to know. But if I'm not being, it might not be that I'm being selfish. Maybe I'm taking care of myself. So maybe ask some questions first, get a feel for it. But just be open and communicating about what you need while you're in that period. And then I think have grace for yourself. The pendulum might swing a little bit before you figure out where that good balance is. And I think just be graceful with yourself and gentle with yourself. And I do think it is absolutely a thing that twos can be good at. I'm a two through and through, but I think I've gotten a lot better at boundaries. And I feel like I should shout out friends of mine who helped me with that, but friends did help. I had friends with really good boundaries, like Emily Morris was incredible. My neighbor who's also works with me on my team, Victoria Jones, is incredible. She's got good boundaries. She's the one who tells me, don't you volunteer for that thing at work, Yeah. And I just I've had people who've been really good at helping me find that out. And if you have people in your life who are good at boundaries, get them in your corner and have them tell you, have them be the person who gives you a little bit of a check of if you're being selfish. Because chances are you might not be being selfish. You might just be doing the bare minimum to take care of yourself. So I will say that. I was probably talking too long, but I'm done.
Thank you so much, Malee. This seriously has been such a service to, I am hopeful and very sure that the twos in the audience will feel that way. But even to me, I'm just realizing I feel so convicted in this conversation that I have not, and this is something I'll be convicted of for the rest of my life, I've not fully realized the beauty and diversity of each person and how you work and how you think about careers is helpful and beautiful. And I realize in this, I've kind of overly, of course, in my type 4 nature, overly romanticized and idolized, you have to be passionate about the tasks themselves. But that's just me. That's just me. And you have had such an amazing story arc. And I love getting to see where you're at now. So thanks for letting us learn from you today.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate it so much. And I love getting to hear your perspective on things. It makes me, I think it's really beautiful and it's really inspiring. And I think some people need that in their life. They need to feel passionately connected with what they're doing. There are other people who need to have room to be passionately connected outside of their job. And I think that there's room for all of it. So,
cheers to that. Thanks for listening to today's episode. To get an even more meaningful head start into your calling, head to thecalledcareer.com, where my fellow career coach Audrey and I have created a whole suite of free resources and tools to help you get clear and get a job today. For those who are definitely ready to land a job or start a business in the next 6 to 12 months, we're here to help you biblically and practically discern your calling through coaching, reflection, and deep market research. Identify the job that's aligned with it, even if you currently have no idea what you want. Rebrand your resume and LinkedIn to translate your background to appeal to your future boss. P.S. We take this off your plate and do this for you. Also, we'll teach you how to land referrals and get attention from leadership through networking. Again, if that makes you nervous, we have these emails and LinkedIn messages literally written for you so you don't have to sweat. We're also here to give you unlimited interview practice so you're prepared to address every elephant in the room and knock selling yourself out of the park. Then we'll round out with helping you negotiate your salary so you land thousands more. Just so you know, recent clients have gotten $8,000 to $50,000 salary increases, even though they were totally non-traditional candidates. That's because we specialize in helping non-traditional career pivoters land jobs they're ecstatic to serve in. It takes work, but we're here to see you through until the end, when we're celebrating that day that you send me an email in all caps and you say, Kelsey, I got the job. Then you could be on the podcast. But I'll be here until then, keeping you accountable and encouraged by meeting with you literally until you land the job you want, even if that's up to 6 months from now within our program. Apply to join at thecalledcareer.com, and I'll see you next week here at Answer the Call. Bye for now.